It was barely sunrise when Buckingham Palace broke its silence. A royal statement, brief, cold, and utterly devastating, was released to the press at 6:00 a.m. sharp. In it, the palace confirmed that Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, would be permanently removed from all remaining royal duties and stripped of the title His Royal Highness. The nation froze. Reporters flooded the streets outside the palace. Cameras clicked. Anchors whispered on live television. And millions of Britons stared at their screens in disbelief. After all, Andrew isn't just another royal figure. He's the late Queen Elizabeth II's own son. But what truly stunned everyone wasn't the decision itself. It was the messenger. The person who read the official statement wasn't King Charles. It was Prince William. Yes, the future king, the Queen's grandson, the nephew of the very man he just publicly disowned. Almost immediately, shock turned to confusion, then outrage. Why would William, the symbol of the monarchy's future, take on such a cruel duty? Was it an act of loyalty to his father, or an attempt to protect the crown from an even darker truth? As one commentator on Sky News put it that morning, it feels less like a royal announcement and more like a public execution. So what really happened behind those palace walls in the days leading up to that announcement? And what secret could possibly be so grave that even blood ties couldn't save Andrew? Let's go back. Back to the weeks before the palace's morning statement, when tension was already building, and the cracks inside the royal family were beginning to show. 2 weeks before the shocking announcement, a quiet tension had already started to build behind the palace walls. It was the kind of silence that felt heavy, like everyone knew something was about to explode. Late one evening, Prince William received a private call from a senior advisor inside the Treasury. The man had once served under the late Queen Elizabeth and was known for his loyalty and his discretion. His message was brief. Your Royal Highness, there's something you need to see, and it concerns your uncle. The next morning, under tight security, William arrived at a small government office near Whitehall. No entourage. No press, just him, the advisor, and a folder sealed with the royal crest. When William opened it, he saw the words Confidential Financial Review, Duke of York. Inside were pages of banking records, offshore transfers, and coded ledgers that stretched back to 2019. One account stood out, a trust fund under Andrew's name, connected to a Swiss banking network. At first, William thought it was just another private investment, but the advisor pointed to several highlighted transactions. They were labeled simply as private settlements. William frowned. Settlements for what? The advisor hesitated. They appear to be payments to individuals linked to the earlier scandals. Sir, William's stomach dropped. He turned the next page and froze. A portion of the funds had come directly from the sovereign grant, the public budget that supports royal duties. In other words, money from British taxpayers. For a long moment, William said nothing. He just stared at the figures. The implications were catastrophic. Finally, in a low voice, he said, if the public ever finds out about this, the monarchy could collapse. The advisor looked at him gravely. Then, Your Royal Highness, what will you do with the truth? William leaned back, his face pale. The room felt colder than before. He knew what this meant. If he revealed the truth, he'd destroy his own uncle. But if he stayed silent, he'd become complicit in the very corruption he'd vowed to erase. He whispered almost to himself. Staying silent would be a sin. For the next several days, William kept the folder hidden in a locked drawer at Kensington Palace. He barely slept. Every meeting, every public appearance felt heavier, as if he was wearing a crown of guilt before ever becoming king. Meanwhile, inside Buckingham Palace, whispers began to spread. Andrew was seen arguing with royal aides. He'd received word that someone inside the family had been digging into his finances. His tone turned defensive, his temper unpredictable. On one occasion, a senior aide recalled Andrew slamming his hand on a desk and shouting, "They wouldn't dare! I'm the Queen's son!" But they did dare. Behind closed doors, William met privately with two trusted figures, the palace comptroller and his father's private secretary. Both confirmed what the documents suggested. Andrew had indeed redirected royal funds to settle private matters. One of them said quietly, "We can try to cover this up, sir, but it won't stay buried forever." William stood by the window, watching the gray London sky. "Then it's better that it comes from us," he said, "before it's dragged out by the press." That was the moment everything shifted. The burden stopped being a secret and became a decision. William knew there would be consequences, not just for Andrew, but for the entire family. Yet the choice was clear. The truth, however painful, had to come from within. As he left the room that night, the folder still under his arm, William muttered quietly, "The crown cannot survive another lie." And with that, he made his choice: to confront his father, to demand action, and to prepare for the storm that was coming, the storm that would end with a royal title erased and a family forever divided. But before that final decision was made public, one meeting would change everything: the confrontation between father and son inside Buckingham Palace. It was one of those gray London mornings when even the palace walls seemed to hold their breath. Inside a private meeting room at Buckingham Palace, four figures sat around a long oak table: King Charles, Queen Camilla, Prince William, and Sir Edward Young, the king's senior advisor. The air was thick, heavy, and silent, until William broke it. "Father Vish," he said calmly, sliding a folder across the table, "you need to see this." Charles opened the folder. Inside were copies of bank transfers, trust documents, and internal memos from the Home Office, all tied to one name: Prince Andrew. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the quiet hum of the clock above the mantel. Charles's face went pale as he flipped through the pages. "Where did you get this?" the king finally asked. William took a breath. "From someone inside the treasury. They trusted me to do the right thing." Camilla leaned forward, her voice low but sharp. "William, you shouldn't have taken this on your own. You're stirring up trouble that should stay buried." William turned to her, his voice steady. "With all due respect, Your Majesty, what's buried in this family always finds its way to the surface." Charles exhaled heavily, pressing his fingers to his temples. "What exactly are you accusing your uncle of?" "I'm not accusing him, sir," William replied. "The numbers speak for themselves. There's a private trust in Switzerland. Funds have been moving through it since 20, and part of that money came from royal accounts." Sir Edward, who had been silent until now, shifted uncomfortably. "Your Majesty, if this is true, it's serious. The press will tear us apart if they find out." Camilla's tone hardened. "Andrew has already been punished. He's lost his public duties, his reputation. Must we destroy what's left of him?" William's reply came instantly. "This isn't about punishment. It's about accountability. If we hide this, we tell the world that royal blood means royal immunity." The room went cold. Charles stared at his son, his heir, trying to find the line between duty and family that had blurred long ago. "You don't understand," Charles said quietly. "Andrew is my brother. He's—" "Your brother, yes," William interrupted, his tone soft but unwavering. "But he's also a public figure who used the people's money to cover his own scandals. If the monarchy stands for anything at all, we can't look away from that." Camilla frowned, her eyes flashing. "You sound just like your mother." The words hung in the air like a curse. William didn't flinch. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. For a long time, no one spoke again. Sir Edward broke the silence cautiously. "If I may, Your Majesty, this will become public eventually. The question is whether the crown will control the narrative or let it explode on its own." Charles rose slowly from his chair, pacing to the window. Outside, the garden stretched in perfect silence, but inside a storm was building. Finally, he turned. And what do you suggest we do, William? William met his father's gaze. We make it official. Strip Andrew of the last titles he still holds. Remove His Royal Highness. Close the trust. Show the public that we can police ourselves. Camilla gasped. You'd humiliate your uncle completely? No, William replied. He humiliated himself. The king's voice dropped to a whisper. You're asking me to cut off my own blood. I'm asking you to save the monarchy. William said, if you don't act, I will. There it was, the quiet rebellion of a son who had inherited not only a crown, but a conscience. The tension in the room was unbearable now. Camilla's jaw tightened. She reached out to touch Charles's hand, but he pulled away. Sir Edward closed his notebook softly. Sensing the moment had reached its breaking point, Charles finally spoke, his voice slow and heavy. Do you have any idea what this means? William, once this is public, there's no going back. The press will tear into all of us. Every secret, every past mistake. They'll drag it all out again. William nodded. Then let them. Better to face the truth than live a lie. A long silence followed. The king's eyes were filled with something between anger and heartbreak. Camilla whispered, Charles, please, think of what this will do to the family. I am thinking of the family, bro, Charles said bitterly. Then he looked back at his son. You say you'll act if I don't. But remember, once you do, the responsibility is yours alone. William stood. He didn't argue. He simply gathered the folder and said quietly, Then I'll carry it. And with that, he left the room. No one spoke after the door closed. The sound of his footsteps faded down the corridor, leaving behind only silence and the weight of a monarchy on the edge of another scandal. Charles looked out the window once more and murmured to himself, almost too softly to hear, if he does this, history will judge him, not kindly. But deep down, even he knew, history was already watching. But the story didn't end there, because once the truth started to leak, the real storm began. When the royal family issued the official statement that Prince Andrew would be stripped of all remaining royal duties and the right to be called His Royal Highness, Britain woke up to chaos. But the real shock wasn't the decision itself. It was the person who delivered it, Prince William. Within hours, headlines exploded across every major newspaper. William turns against his uncle. Future king cuts blood ties. A betrayal within the palace walls. Outside Buckingham Palace, cameras swarmed. Commentators were arguing live on air. One called it the boldest royal act since Diana's interview in 1995. But the reactions were deeply divided. Older generations, loyal to the memory of Queen Elizabeth II, saw it as an act of arrogance. That boy's forgotten his place. One former palace aide told the BBC, he's not the king yet. Meanwhile, younger Britons flooded social media with support. One viral post read, for once, someone in that palace had the courage to do the right thing. Another simply said, William just saved the monarchy. The kingdom was split in half, between tradition and accountability, between silence and truth. Inside the palace, the atmosphere was suffocating. King Charles refused to comment publicly. Insiders said he spent hours behind closed doors, reading through private letters from his late mother, as if searching for guidance she could no longer give. Queen Camilla became the unexpected target of speculation. Several tabloids claimed she had orchestrated the entire downfall of Andrew to strengthen William's image, and by extension, her own power. One columnist wrote, wherever scandal brews, Camilla's shadow is never far. But palace aides quickly denied it. They insisted the queen had nothing to do with the decision. Still, the damage was done. The rumor had already taken on a life of its own. As for Prince Andrew, he disappeared. No photos, no public sightings, no official word from his office. For days, reporters camped outside Royal Lodge in Windsor, hoping for a glimpse. Nothing. Curtains drawn, gates closed. A source close to the family whispered to the Times, He feels like a ghost haunting his own home, betrayed not just by his brother, but by the nephew he once adored. Meanwhile, the press kept digging. A leaked memo suggested William had presented irrefutable evidence during a private meeting, evidence that proved Andrew's misuse of royal funds. The story caught fire. Talk shows turned it into entertainment. Is William a hero or a hypocrite? One host asked. Another added, he's cleaning house before he takes the throne, and Andrew was the first to burn. Even the American media joined in. CNN called it a generational showdown inside the world's most famous family. Late-night hosts joked about it, while British satirists depicted Buckingham as a battlefield divided by blood. But beneath the headlines, something darker was brewing. A few insiders began questioning the timing. Why now? Why release such a statement while the king was still in recovery from his illness? Some whispered that William was testing his authority, taking the first steps toward reshaping the monarchy under his own moral code. Others argued he'd been forced into it, that the evidence against Andrew was so damaging, he had no choice but to act before it leaked on its own. Whatever the truth, one thing was clear: the royal family's carefully crafted image of unity had shattered overnight. In pubs, people debated over pints. In Parliament, MPs used the scandal as proof the monarchy had grown out of touch. Even loyal royalists admitted something had changed, perhaps forever. Meanwhile, Prince Andrew's old friends painted a far more personal picture. He's devastated. One longtime associate confessed in a private call leaked to The Guardian. He believes he's been sacrificed, not for justice, but for optics. They needed a villain, and he fit the part. In a later interview, an unnamed royal staffer added quietly, Andrew once said William reminded him of his mother, strict when it came to duty, but compassionate in private. He doesn't see that compassion anymore. All he sees is judgment. And then came the line that would haunt everyone who heard it. That same source recalled Andrew's final words before he withdrew from public life. It's one thing to be punished by your brother, but it's another to be condemned by your blood. A chilling silence followed. The monarchy had survived wars, divorces, and death, but never this kind of public betrayal from within its own walls. The question now echoing across Britain wasn't whether Prince Andrew was guilty. It was whether the royal family itself could survive the storm that Prince William had just unleashed. It was late afternoon when the letter arrived. No royal seal, no courier in uniform, just an unmarked envelope, slipped through a side gate at Kensington Palace. The handwriting was unmistakable, sharp, deliberate, almost defiant. Prince Andrew. William froze for a moment, staring at it. For days, the palace had been silent. His decision to publicly remove his uncle's royal title had divided the nation and the family. But this letter, it felt different, almost personal. He opened it carefully. Inside, a single sheet of cream stationery. No greeting, no apology. Only the first line, written in heavy black ink. Not everything you've heard is the truth. William read it on, his heart beat slow and heavy. Andrew wrote, You've made your choice, and I will not beg for forgiveness. But before you erase my name from history, at least hear me one last time. There are things you were never told, things Mother wanted buried with her. That line, Mother wanted buried with her, made William pause. The Queen, his grandmother. What could Andrew possibly mean? The letter went on, I was not the only one involved in what you think you've discovered. What you saw, the money, the accounts, the trust. It was never meant for me alone. It was part of something larger, something she protected. And if the truth comes out, it won't destroy me. It will destroy all of us. The final words were haunting. If you wish to be king one day, you should understand what you're about to burn. William folded the letter, his jaw tight. The room felt smaller, colder. For a long while he said nothing. Then, finally, to his private secretary, he murmured, I need to see him, alone. 3 days later, a discreet black car drove William through the foggy roads of Yorkshire. The meeting was arranged quietly. No aides, no press, Just the two of them, uncle and nephew, once close, now divided by duty and disgrace. The place was an old stone cottage, hidden behind thick hedges. Inside, the air smelled of damp wood and old smoke. Andrew sat by the window, wearing a dark sweater, eyes sunken but sharp. He looked up and said quietly, "I didn't think you'd come," William replied. "You left me no choice." A long silence. The tension was suffocating. Then Andrew said, "You think you saved the monarchy. You think stripping me of a title fixes the rot. But you've only made it worse. You've turned family into spectacle." William's voice was firm. "The monarchy can't survive with corruption buried under its carpets. This isn't about me, it's about the crown." Andrew scoffed. "The crown? You talk about it like it's holy. You have no idea what Mother did to protect it. You weren't there when decisions were made, the kind that never reached the papers. Never get written in history books." William frowned. "Are you trying to justify what you did?" Andrew shook his head. "No, I'm telling you that your grandmother knew everything. Every payment, every secret deal. She begged me to take the blame when it all started to unravel. She said, 'Someone has to fall so the institution can stand.' So I did. And you've just buried her sacrifice." William's eyes darkened. "If that's true, why didn't she ever tell me?" "Because you were her clean slate," Andrew said bitterly. "The one she thought could carry the name without stain." There was a pause so long that the ticking clock became unbearable. Then William whispered, "So what do you want from me?" Andrew's answer was quiet, almost sad. "Nothing. I just wanted you to know that you're not as innocent as you think. None of us are. You've lit a fire you can't control." William stood up slowly. "You had a choice. You could have come forward, cleared your name, but you didn't. You let her take the fall with you." Andrew's voice rose, trembling with anger. "I protected her. I protected all of you. And now you're destroying what's left." William turned to leave. His hand was already on the doorknob when Andrew's voice came again, softer this time. "Do you even know where the real money came from, William, or who approved it?" William stopped, but didn't turn around. Andrew added, "Ask your father. If he's honest, you'll see who's really guilty." For a moment, the silence was deafening. Then William walked out, closing the door behind him with a quiet click. Outside, the wind was biting cold. He stood by the car, eyes fixed on the horizon, lost, conflicted, haunted by what he'd just heard. Because deep down, a single thought echoed in his mind. What if Andrew wasn't lying? And for the first time since that morning's announcement, William felt something colder than guilt. He felt fear, fear that the real scandal hadn't even started yet. 3 days later, the official statement was released. No leaks, no warning, no soft landing, just a cold, royal announcement that hit Britain like a thunderclap. Buckingham Palace declared that Prince Andrew would be stripped of all his royal duties, all military titles, and, most painfully, his right to be called His Royal Highness. But the real shock wasn't what the statement said. It was who delivered it. It wasn't King Charles, it was Prince William. Standing behind a simple podium in a navy suit, William looked calm, almost too calm. Cameras flashed. Reporters held their breath. And then he said it. "After careful consideration and with the support of His Majesty the King, the Duke of York will no longer carry out any public duties on behalf of the royal family." It was just one sentence. But it was the sentence that broke the Windsor line in half. Within minutes, the internet exploded. BBC, Sky News, and the Times ran headlines calling it the heir's coup. Others said William had finally done what the king didn't have the courage to do. Wow. On social media, the reactions were split right down the middle. Half the country called William a hero, a man brave enough to protect the monarchy's dignity, even if it meant cutting down his own uncle. The other half called him a traitor, the prince who destroyed his own bloodline, who placed image above family, power above loyalty. One tabloid headline screamed, "William just killed the House of Windsor." And in a way, maybe he did one. Inside the palace, the mood was far from victory. Camilla, who had been trying to hold the family together, was seen in tears. She reportedly turned to Charles and whispered, her voice shaking, "You just let him destroy his own brother." Charles looked away, silent for a long time, before quietly saying, "No, he destroyed this family." Those words hung in the air, heavy, final, like a curtain falling at the end of a tragedy. From that moment, everything changed. Andrew vanished. No public appearances, no photos, no statements. The man who once carried royal honors now lived in quiet isolation behind the palace walls. His friend said he refused to eat, refused to speak, and spent hours just pacing through his private garden like a ghost. Charles, meanwhile, avoided the press. Every time he appeared in public, he looked 10 years older. Reporters shouted questions, but he gave no answers. His silence said everything. And William, he didn't look like a man who'd won. He looked like a man who'd crossed the line he could never go back from. For the first time, people began to question whether this was truly justice or just another royal power play, hidden behind polished statements and duty-filled words. In pubs across London, people argued. Some said William was cleaning the mess that Charles refused to handle. Others said he was becoming too much like his grandmother, cold, strategic, and untouchable. Even within the family, trust began to crack. Every meeting, every photo, every smile, it all looked staged. The invisible wall between father and son had never felt higher. And yet, deep down, William must have known this was the price. A future king doesn't get to have peace. He only gets decisions and consequences. That night, as the palace lights dimmed, a witness claimed to have seen William standing alone by the window of his private residence, staring out at the dark courtyard. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just stood there and still as stone, because in that silence, he must have realized something. He hadn't just removed a royal title. He had rewritten the future of his family, forever. From that day on, William disappeared from the public eye. No interviews, no appearances, just silence. For 2 long weeks, the world waited and wondered what the heir to the British throne would do next. They say the British monarchy was built on honor, but what happens when that honor demands the sacrifice of your own blood? William has learned that lesson the hardest way possible. Since that day, the palace corridors have grown colder, the portraits quieter. He's haunted by the last thing his father said to him: "History will judge you." And it does every single day. Prince Andrew has vanished from the public eye. He now lives somewhere far from London, away from the cameras, away from the whispers. But silence doesn't mean peace. For a man once called His Royal Highness, being forgotten may be the cruelest punishment of all. Inside Buckingham Palace, nothing feels the same. Charles carries the weight of what happened, not just as a king, but as a brother. Camilla often says, he's grown old overnight, because in protecting the crown, he lost something far greater: his family. Meanwhile, the public can't stop asking questions. Was William really acting out of duty or out of fear? Was he protecting the monarchy or hiding something the world was never meant to see? Some call him brave, others call him ruthless. But the truth is, in the royal family, there are no heroes, only survivors. Every decision leaves a scar, every silence hides a story, and every act of honor comes with a price. Maybe Prince Andrew was right in his final letter. Not everything William heard was the truth. Maybe what he destroyed wasn't just a man's name, but the last thread holding this family together. The monarchy may still stand, but inside those golden walls, the cracks have never been deeper. In the end, there are no winners, only the silent ones, and the secrets they'll take to their graves. Final question to the audience. Do you believe William did the right thing, or did he just begin the end of the British monarchy?